A world where empires rise not from sheer willpower or clever kings, but from the silent, unyielding whims of rivers, mountains, and coastlines. This is the most crucial, yet utterly overlooked force in global power. The reason some nations soar while others stumble, why wealth clings to certain shores and flees from others. Every year, whispers of American decline echo louder, fueled by fear, hope, or sheer speculation. But amid the noise, no one pauses to consider the raw truth. On a planet as chaotic, diverse, and sprawling as ours, the physical land beneath our feet is the ultimate shackle on a country's choices. Why does China flex its muscles in bizarre ways? Why hasn't Africa exploded into prosperity despite its riches? Why do certain spots on the map seem cursed with endless turmoil? Buckle up, because we're diving into the geography lottery, the invisible architect of human history. This video is proudly brought to you by champions of turning ordinary dirt into sustainable gold. But before we get there, let's unpack how every wrinkle of land can bless, curse, or indifferently shape the fate of the nation that claims it. Take that vast, flat expanse from Moscow to Warsaw. It's a nightmare for Russia, a wide-open invitation for invaders. History screams it. Germany under Hitler, Napoleon before him, both strolled their armies through like it was a Sunday picnic. Or consider the towering Himalayas on China's western flank. Neutral at best, a fortress against foes from the south, but a cruel barrier denying overland routes to the Indian Ocean, starving China of vital trade and military reach. Flip the coin to the US, where the Mississippi River Basin boasts more navigable waterways than the entire rest of the world combined. A jackpot of surplus food and dirt-cheap transport that fueled an unstoppable rise. Survey these features across every nation, and suddenly the world's pecking order snaps into focus. It's no accident. It's the Earth whispering its rules. So, let's play a game, a thought experiment that rewinds to humanity's dawn. The first known humans emerged from the cradle of Southeast Africa, fanning out like sparks from a fire, eventually igniting the 6 great cradles of civilization: the Olmec in Mexico's lush valleys, the Norte Chico in Peru's arid coasts, the Nile in Egypt's fertile ribbon, Mesopotamia's Tigris-Euphrates delta, the Indus in India's monsoon-drenched plains, and the Yellow River in China's Loess-rich heartland. Every society, every country craves the same dream: peace, growth, prosperity that endures. But one of these ancient powerhouses outshone the others, its triumph etched in the very soil it stood upon. What would you pick to start your empire? Food is lifeblood. Without it, no population swells, no armies march. You'd crave reliable fresh water, a lifeline for people and crops alike. A natural barrier? Oh yes, something to make invaders weep in frustration. If you chose the Nile, congratulations. You've hit the geographic jackpot. Those 138 pyramids aren't random monuments. They're testaments to millennia of unbroken stability. Egypt wasn't just stable. It was the most enduring society humanity has ever birthed, lasting 3,300 years. Why? 3 predictable, earth-given gifts. First, the Nile is the world's most dependable river. Its annual floods weren't cataclysmic killers like those of the Yellow River, which could wipe out 10% of China's population in a single rage. No, the Nile's gentle inundations deposited nutrient-rich silt, turning the valley into a predictable breadbasket. This reliability births not just agriculture, but culture. The Egyptians wove the floods into their mythology, seeing them as the tears of Isis mourning Osiris, a cycle of death and rebirth that mirrored their eternal society. Festivals like the Opet celebrated this watery renewal, binding communities in emotional rituals that fostered social cohesion. Geography fueling faith and unity. Second, the river's flat, navigable course made transport a breeze. Goods floated effortlessly from Upper Egypt's quarries to the Mediterranean coast, knitting a vast economy without the back-breaking overland hauls that plagued Mesopotamia's uneven terrain. Third, those flanking deserts? Impenetrable shields. No army fancied marching across scorching sands that could swallow regiments whole. 4,000 years ago, it was suicide. Even today, modern militaries balk. This isolation bred a profound cultural insularity. Egyptians viewed outsiders as chaotic barbarians, their pharaohs as god-kings ordained by the land itself. It wasn't arrogance, it was geography whispering invincibility. But nothing lasts forever. Egypt's fall, toppled by invaders like the Persians and Greeks, ignited the Great Global Shuffle. As populations exploded from 200 million around year zero to 500 million by 1500, humans collided like tectonic plates. Kingdoms merged, splintered, warred endlessly. Europe's revolving door of conflicts, China's warring states era with its brutal sieges, Japan's feudal bloodbaths, Africa's tribal expansions. By 1800, 1 billion souls. 1945, 3 billion. Then, bam, nuclear weapons flipped the script. Are we really invading? What if they nuke us? Borders froze, slower to redraw than in the prior 2,000 years of chaos. Earth's geography lottery locked in, blessing and cursing nations for generations. Enter the United States, reigning over the planet's most enviable landmass. Spanning a quarter of the globe's latitude, its coasts bear the scars of ancient glaciers. Deep canyons carving natural deepwater ports from Maine to Florida. Europe, mostly shallow, freezing harbors. North America, a port paradise, welcoming ships year-round. This gift propelled colonization. Europe's superior ship designs and navies, honed by centuries of Atlantic squabbles, sailed from non-freezing ports, docking effortlessly in New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore. Settlements boomed, pushing west. The East Coast's fertile lands were solid, but the real magic? The Louisiana Purchase. In 1803, for a steal, $340 million today, America snagged a legal lock on this heartland, barring European rivals. What's it worth now? Priceless, but let's ballpark. At least $60 trillion. That's a 17 million% ROI. Thomas Jefferson, the ultimate investor. No scenario sees America selling its core. It's the spine of the nation. Overstate the Mississippi Basin's importance? Impossible. It's the globe's premier farmland, flat and fertile, connected by rivers more navigable than anywhere else combined. Goods flow cheaply from heartland to the protected Gulf of Mexico, then oceans beyond. This network didn't just build wealth, it shaped American soul. Think of the cultural folklore. Mark Twain's Huck Finn rafting the Mississippi, symbolizing freedom and adventure. The blues born on its banks, echoing the emotional toil of enslaved laborers who turned its floods into cotton empires. Geography here fostered the Industrial Revolution's roar, steamboats chugging steel and grain, while fueling social upheavals like the Civil War, where river control meant victory or defeat. France knew the score, selling despite Britain amid their wars. They have given England a rival who will humble her pride, Napoleon quipped. Spot on, the US eclipsed Britain, linking Pacific to Atlantic. That oceanic moat, 3,000 miles from Europe's eternal wars, 4,500 from Asia, spared America the rebuilds that ravaged developed nations over 150 years. No bombs on home soil since 1812, just prosperity blooming from the dirt. But power's relative. The great game nations play hinges on land's gifts compared to rivals. Here's where others falter against America's edge. China, one ocean access, the Pacific, bottlenecked by unfriendly gates. Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, South China, sea neighbors. Trade routes hug hostile shores. 80% of oil squeezes through the Malacca Strait's narrow throat. Vulnerable in conflict, it's a historical wound. Recall the Opium Wars, when British gunboats exploited this coastal trap, forcing unequal treaties that scarred Chinese pride for generations. Culturally, this fuels a deep-seated century of humiliation narrative, driving modern ambitions. For 2 decades, billions poured into overland escapes. The Karakoram Highway to Pakistan's Gwadar port, rails and pipelines over Myanmar's mountains. These are China's only shots at trucking goods from interior to Indian Ocean ships. Offensive, defensive, China's options pale against America's tri-ocean sprawl. Africa, 4 times Europe's size, second most populous continent after Asia. Teeming with resources, gold, diamonds, oil, its promise tantalizes. Yet, no breakout superpower. Why? Geography's cruel sabotage. Rivers like the Congo, unrunnable end to end. From headwaters, 7,600 miles to Atlantic, but rapids, 10 miles of 20-foot waves, boulder behemoths, cartoonish whirlpools, halt all. H.M. Stanley, of Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Fame, quit at Inga Rapids, lamenting it as an immense tragedy, denying Central Africa, 2/3 U.S. size, ocean access. Side view the Congo, a massive step drop versus the Mississippi's gentle slope. Even if flat, Africa's coast betrays it. Glaciers skip the continent, leaving smooth shores, no jagged bays like Chesapeake for safe harbors. With 20% of Earth's land, Africa claims under 5% coastline. Europe, 7% land, but 16% coast. This smoothness amplifies ocean fury. Powerful currents slam sediment from rivers like the Niger, silting rare harbors. Dredging? A Sisyphean nightmare pre-machinery. Colonial powers exploited this. Europeans carved arbitrary borders, ignoring tribal geographies, sowing ethnic conflicts that echo in modern strife. Culturally, it's heartbreaking. Think of the Swahili coast's ancient trade cities, thriving on Indian Ocean winds, yet isolated interiors bred poverty, fueling migrations and diaspora tales of lost potential. Africa never vied for ocean trade dominance post-1500s. Russia, crushed by dual geographic riddles. First, Ukraine's flat plains, a general's insomnia fuel. Twice in 200 years, Europeans marched to Moscow. Napoleon torched it. Hitler nearly did. Controlling that step, vital but insufficient. Russia craves multiple deep, warm water ports tied to its core. Atlantic access, via northern Murmansk, freezing-prone, Baltic choke points, Danish straits, or Turkish bottlenecks to Mediterranean. Hence, Russia's Arctic obsession, melting ice, could unlock a northern port, bonanza year-round. Middle East meddling, partly for ports. 1970s Afghanistan invasion eyed Pakistan's coast, now China's target. Syria? Not just affection. Assad grants unrestricted access to Tartus, above Suez, a strategic gem. Russian literature drips with this land-induced paranoia. Tolstoy's epics evoke vast, defenseless steppes. Pushkin's tales romanticize expansion as survival. Geography breeds a cultural siege mentality. Britain, textbook tech victim. Island perks, 360-degree ocean access, English Channel moat. Shielded it from Europe's wars, channeling trade. Empire bloomed, but aviation shattered it. Hitler's Luftwaffe crossed in 30 minutes, bombers over London. No more slowboat invasions, Britain vulnerable anew. Post-Wasquieu, America's ocean buffers made dollars safer than pounds. The reserve currency shift drained Britain. Other factors? Sure, but planes nailed the coffin. Culturally, it lingers. Britain's splendid isolation morphed into Brexit-era nostalgia, geography's echo and national identity. On a 1-10 scale for the big three, feed your people, invadable, trade freely, only one nation aces it, America. Everything else, politics, economy, culture, sprouts from that soil foundation. Not the sole factor, but the starting line. So, American decline, whispers date to 1930, yet here we stand, nearly a century on. Ignoring geography's grip means missing why civilizations endure. Until the earth shifts, power doesn't. Organic food's booming, but under 1% of U.S. farmland is certified. Enter Farmland LP, our sponsor. Since 2009, transforming conventional farms in California and the Pacific Northwest with organic regenerative magic. Crop rotations, cover crops, habitat restoration. After 2 smash funds, their third invites accredited investors to own farmland. Food producing, ecosystem healing, value building. Dive in via the description link. The land doesn't lie, it's our silent sovereign. What secrets does your patch hold?